Well, welcome, White Plains family. I'm so excited to introduce you to two women that I've gotten to know a little bit on this journey of welcoming wellness. I want to introduce Amy and Linda to you, and really, we would just want to hear your story. So, Linda, let's start with you.
Okay.
Tell me about your welcoming wellness journey.
Well, when I hear the word welcoming, it's inviting. And so with an invitation, you get to choose if you want to or not. So I welcome assistance with wellness because it can be quite challenging.
Yeah, and Amy, what about you?
My welcoming wellness journey. Being the parent and friend and family member of people who have significant mental health challenges, it's important for me as a caregiver, as a friend, as a family member to put wellness at the top of my priority list. It's a no brainer to me after going through a significant crisis many years ago.
And let's talk about one of the things that we hope to accomplish with this welcoming wellness is to make it easier for people to seek help, one stop shop for resources. But also, a lot of people, when they think about what am I going to do, they're in a crisis. So let's just go back to when you were in a crisis. Maybe then we'll hear from you. And tell me about where you were then and what you learned.
Well, the very first crisis lasted over 3 years. And I was well into that before I really knew of the crisis. So with mental health challenges that I have experienced with people whom I love, whom I have a great responsibility to for their health and their wellness, and I'm supposed to know everything, I did not know what was going on. So the first hurdle that I got over after bumping into it a lot was that isolation and that secrecy, which has its base in shame because of how did I get here? How do I not know what's going on? Who can I tell? And how can I get what doesn't exist? I just didn't know where to ask, where to look. And that dread, that feeling of trying to move forward, but you're just stomping, stomping, stomping in the muck of it because I just didn't know what to do. I knew about a pediatrician, I knew about getting shots, I knew about in the school if academics were not progressing like they should, but a total progressive personality type of change, I just didn't know what to do. And I was afraid. I was very much afraid. I was angry. And to be honest, I was embarrassed. And I feared for the assault of shame that would come. Not so much for me, but for others that I was supposed to be there for and know what to do. And I was lost, and it was debilitating.
Well, the good news is you got through it.
I got through it, and it was stifling the silence.
Yeah.
That was it. And being willing to be seen, really seen, and not worry so much about getting judged. Because I already felt like I had messed up because I was in something I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And Amy, I saw you nodding your head. A
Mm.
lot of those shared experiences. What would you say about where you were at that crisis moment?
Oh, wow. So during the moment that crisis hit, I remember exactly where I was. I kind of describe it as pre-call and after call. And I received a call while I was at work from a school guidance counselor. And what was going on at that time is I had this really senior position with a lot of responsibility, and there wasn't a lot of time in my world for catastrophe. And up till that time, I would say that I was very goal oriented, career oriented, and, nothing got in my way from achieving my goals. And that was to my detriment and to others' detriment because I was a leader. And I would say, as a leader, I felt like I could not be vulnerable because my business reputation, in my mind at that time, was who I was. My identity was attached to my professional career. It was less attached to being a good friend, a good mother, a caring manager, right? And so during that crisis, there was a lot of, not only did I need to help my family member, and I needed to help the rest of my family and my husband, I had to figure out how to help myself.
Yes.
Because somebody had to keep this train on the track. Because when you're a mom and you get these books and you're walking down the street or you're having coffee or tea with your other mother friends, and you know those books, and I won't say which one it is. It's like, but by 6 months, they should be doing this. And by 12 months, they should be doing this. And by 2 years, they should be doing this. So you're constantly in some sort of weird competition. Weird competition with others. Like we're the ultimate influencer in why our child is walking or not walking, right? So that we're nurtured to be that way, competitive. And so when Linda started talking about isolation and shame and loneliness and anger, all of those things, you don't have a peer at that point to sit down and say, is this normal in your child's mental health progression? Are you feeling the same thing I'm feeling? I used to have those friends that I could say, yeah, my kid's walking. What about yours? My kid stopped napping. What about yours? But there was we joked about it not being a casserole illness. Nobody volunteered to bring me a chicken casserole.
What did you say? A casserole?
Casserole. Yeah.
I love it.
It's
I love
not.
it. You know what? But what you both hit on though is something you said. You call it stifling the silence, or breaking the silence. And one of the things that we're hoping to do with Welcoming Wellness, our church is behind this, but it's volunteer driven, and that is to bring this voice into a normal conversation, everyday conversation. But guess what? Everybody knows somebody, but we're not talking about it. So tell me how you found your voice.
Well, I give God quite a bit of credit because not getting sleep, worrying and waiting when it's the next time you have to leave your job or your social event to pick up, to get somebody off the bus, help somebody get on the bus, get out the bathroom, get back to class, when that took a lot of prayer and listening to the Lord and feeling His presence and being courageous to hear where He was directing. And my first tangible point of help, deliverance. I mean, Jesus saves, but we almost called this salvation, was NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Knowing that I wasn't the only mom that was a believer but got stuck in failure mode and fear. There were others out there. And then there was education. There was groups that I could attend, people on that same journey that I could honestly say, I know this may not be the best thing to do, but if a panic attack comes up and one of my young people call me, I'm going to be there, even if I just dropped everything 2 days ago. I'm not going to fuss, yell, or whoop or punishment somebody out of bed if they can't do that. And I don't even know why. I don't understand it. So knowing that, having people going through the same thing, that was very helpful for me. And my faith community, my church, has been very helpful.
So, Amy, you see again, you're just nodding your head, and you talked about the importance of having a community of care, and that's what I'm hearing from Linda. To talk a little bit about how did you find that community of care?
I've given talks on finding my community of care, right? And I've done a lot of research on this and self-reflection on what worked for me. So the first step we've talked about, really just getting through that personal stigma, cultural stigma, and being comfortable educating and telling stories, because that's how you bring people in to your circle. And then I started focusing on my self-care first, right? And analyzing, like, where do I go? What do I do when my batteries get drained, right? And we'll just take a simple example, right? If I've had an illness that has put me behind, or if I have had this work project that has taken me for many, many weeks to, what do I do to recharge? What are the little things? And so understanding my patterns and where did I do in times of stress and what were my symptoms? And like other people might say, hey, when I get hungry, I get hangry, right? Well, you need to be able to say that about yourself in stress. When I get stressed out, I do X, Y, and Z. And where do I go to recuperate? And so those two foundational things, you really can't ask for help from others until you get comfortable with yourself.
Right.
I mean, I would say during that time, I did not know NAMI, and I felt very alone. But what I can tell you is, you've mentioned your faith, and that's a big part of it. For me, I would say that I was very lucky to have my husband as a strong partner with me, where we were both learning together, and we both have different styles, but we were able to comfort, or, okay, when you get frustrated, I'll take over, or when I get frustrated, I'll give you the signal and you take over, right? And then I would say at work, because I've mentioned that I had this high pressure job, my boss at the time noticed there was something not right, and she approached me with it in a very safe way, and she didn't need to know the drama, the details, but all she told me is, she's like, what do you need?
Wow.
What do you need? And so
Great.
so the other thing is extending grace. So through that whole period, when you create your community of care, a lot of it has to do with extending grace to yourself and to others. And when you do that, like my boss modeled that behavior to me, she extended me some grace.
A boss that extended grace. Amen.
That's great.
That's good.
And when you mentioned a key thing about the cultural differences, that was a huge obstacle. Once I got past my fear, I'm still so grateful for how it has played out. So we have this saying, I'm going to call it cultural. Black people don't put their business, like in the street, and we've had some kind of historical challenges with receiving just medical, physical health care. And then there is, the documented things of inappropriate care or wellness. So when you think of mental health issues, that was a challenge, just making that known throughout the family and then getting the support to trust outside of the family to have my and those I love well-being. And that was a huge obstacle too. And it still exists,
Right.
which is why an initiative like this at your church in a great community like this may encourage others to know that it's not taboo. We deserve the same recognition and support and attention to our physical, emotional, and our mental wellness. And that was a lesson I had to learn, and I had to require that my personal support team would understand and would get on board with, and they have.
So a personal support team is important for that community of care. Amy, you had a thought.
Well, I was just saying this, like Linda's spot on with the stigma from your cultural background. I would say that my first exposure to mental health challenges was watching my father as I was growing up. And I grew up in a very rural part of the state, and it's very similar, right? So in our community, it was the old Chevrolet commercial, and nobody probably remembers it. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet, right? Like we were God, country, family. It was sleep with your screen door open at night, ball field on Saturday, fire department spaghetti dinner Saturday night, church on Sunday, and you did not share your business. And so my father was a businessman, and I would watch him be out in public, be just the apple of the community's eye. And then at home, I would see him bow his head, cry, stare into space, and every single night. And you couldn't figure out, like as a little kid, why is this, what's happening? And it's so interesting to know, right, the different groups, whether it's in the Black community or whether it's in the rural community, how that stiff upper lip and your all appearances are very important. And because your family of origin, right, those first 20 years of your life is so important to developing your character, that's where the stigma comes from. That's where you are isolated. That's where your norms. And it takes a lot of habit building and rewiring to get out of that.
So when we talk about this, someone's watching right now this video, and they need to be rewired. They're in that panic. They're scared. They don't know what to do. Talk to them.
You are not alone. It feels like smothering, stifling aloneness. The most instant and long-lasting relief is letting it out. Can I talk? Can I tell you this? What do you think about this? Just opening that conversation and knowing that you still have the right to orchestrate the engagement. So if anything comes to you offensive, hurtful, you can stop that conversation and you can go on to the next one. But what worked for me, I had to get all that pressure, that anger, that fear, that uncertainty, that depression. It was like in my skin pores, just flooding, oozing. And it's such a relief. And it could be as simple as, I know teenagers can be challenging, but ABC, whatever you choose to say, I just don't know what to think. Have you experienced this? Did you ever A, B, and C? What worked for you? Just a little bit of letting that steam and that pressure out. Because even if people aren't talking, with mental wellness, you're not alone. You're just not alone.
And one thing you said to me that I'll never forget, you said, you got to look past the look. Tell me what you meant by that, because somebody might face that or have already faced it.
Yes, look past the look because it's scary. And it's an exposing experience. But it's not your fault. It's not the individual's fault who's challenged with the health impairment. So with that, oh my God, oh, I can't believe that. And sometimes looking past the look comes with questions that are not even relevant. That's not appropriate. Look past that and keep it moving. You may have to go to the next one, or you may have to choose to tap into that strength that's in us. That's in us. I mean, we're still sitting here. It didn't take us out. It felt like it. I'm not embarrassed to say it. There are many times I felt like it was going to take me out. Not just my loved one, but me too. And you just go to the next one. And you keep your compassion for yourself and for the other. You may not be able to minister or help them right then, but you can look past that look and find the next person to pray with you, to cry with you, to listen to you. Yeah.
Excellent. Amy, you might want to build on, how does someone take that first step when they're in that crisis moment, find their voice?
Sometimes taking that first step just means the first step is to take a big breath. And, right?
Take a big breath.
There's going to be, this is not, my husband often says, because he's an engineer, his learning through all of this is he'd show up with duct tape and a level. He's like, I'm going to fix it. And I see this so many times in the classes through NAMI that I facilitate, is people think that if your loved one is diagnosed with a mental health condition, that it's going to get better, just like putting a broken arm in a cast. And it's a real journey. And one thing I will say is you will build resilience. You are stronger than you think you are. And on the bad days, it's okay to come home and declare upset and start over again tomorrow.
That's
You
good.
cannot,
Reset.
you cannot think beyond that. And having a plan, right? So what helped our family when we would have crisis, and in some cases it was a 3-year-long, 4-year-long crisis, just sitting down and having a plan. Well, okay, I know it's 2:00 in the morning, but let's talk about this. What can we do? Well, we've just sent an email to the psychiatrist. We've just sent an email to the psychologist. Whoever answers first will get us in. Dad will stay home with you tomorrow morning. Mom will go into work. And Mom will come home after lunch, and I'll go into work. Like having a plan. And sometimes just having a plan can make your mindset shift just a little bit.
That's good.
Well, y'all have just given all of us here at White Plains and everybody watching such a gift. Permission to find our voice, permission to be scared, permission to take that first step. And as we close, I'd like to hear how the two of you met and what you got from meeting each other.
Well, I met this great facilitator instructor at one of the NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I've been to their family to family workshop and several other ones, and it was life saving for us. It was so good to learn the basics about emotional and mental wellness and challenges, and how to navigate the system, how to find support, how to be support. And it helped not only with our challenges, but with my marriage, just to be doing something together, structured and organized, in a safe place for two people that have become one to voice their individual taking in of all that was going on. It was a great place. You learned the theory, and you got to deal with your emotions about it, and with like-minded people. If you had a breakdown, meltdown, crying, if you had to get up and walk out the room, there was no stigma, there's no label. You were welcome right back. So NAMI has done a great job. And then after that, to be sharing this space, it's a lasting relationship. Yeah, because wellness is for life.
It is.
Yeah.
Linda was a real leader in our class, and I don't know if you know that, but the wisdom that she shared, because when people come to these classes, right, they're voluntary. This was probably right around COVID. We were doing everything virtually. It's a lot to ask someone going through crisis or recovering from crisis to spend 2.5 hours on a week on a Zoom call. And so what I think is what I love about these classes is there's education, but you know what? You can probably use your search engine on the computer and find a lot of this information, but it's presented in a logical, comprehensive fashion. But what I hear from the students is the community, right? The connection, the feeling that there's someone on the other side of North Carolina or Wake County or Durham County that is in a similar situation. And then they don't need the facilitators. They just need each other. And Linda would volunteer.
Community.
Like she would share her thoughts, her poetry with the group, and it was just in time. People need that.
Well, so as we're going to wrap up, I'm going to do two things. One, I want you to read one of your poems. You pick your best book.
Okay.
But what y'all have done here today, and for our church family, our kickoff event on Welcoming Wellness is going to do all of those things. It's going to kick off on the 19th of May. We're excited. We're going to have that community of support, a chance for people to come and just be with one another with a shared experience. It'll be a hybrid event. You can join online or in person.
That's good.
And you can come and say nothing. But you'll still be surrounded with people that are sharing an experience with you, which you've done with us today. So, my heart for both of you for just taking your time and sharing your story. I feel empowered just sitting in the same room with each of you. Now, tell us about your book and read us a poem.
Okay. So, Words, Beholding Black Women by me. You can find it on Amazon. So I called my good friend, and she told me to share Willow with you all. I don't even know what page it's on, but I do know it. So it's called Willow, if you can find it.
Oh, well, okay.
So, and it's fitting for this. Can I stand up or no?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Am I looking at that camera? It doesn't matter,
Look at
right?
this one now when you do it.
If I sign up today, if I miss it, and if I miss it, just hide that like that.
Yes.
So, But really, this is for you all. I feel like I should be looking at y'all. Okay, but
It's for everyone.
oh, okay. So, willow, root, sway with that moves within. Trauma happens. Sway. Be grounded. Breath in body. Fully present. A vivid presence. There may be roots, wind shifts, stability. Bow down. Hallelujah.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What a blessing you've been to us
Oh,
today.
we can
Thank
get
you
up.
both.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
You know, one thing that was challenging when we were going through crisis is feeling like we could open up to people and get a supportive reaction. And not everyone has been trained on being an active, good listener. Not everyone has gone through coach training. A lot of people don't know how to be a good mentor. And that can be so destructive. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people, and I know this happened to me, I didn't open up to a lot of people that were close in my life because I did not have any more energy to give on that. I had to prioritize where my energy went, and it had to be to my family and to the few people within my circle that knew. So when you do decide to open up, and it's probably you're very nervous, perhaps you pick someone where you've observed them in other situations being able to ask questions out of curiosity to people instead of jumping to conclusions. The other thing is, I think you need to set your boundaries.
That's good.
What are you willing to share? And then what are you not willing to share because it's just drama and gossip? And sometimes we're taught, if you're a coach, so I'm trained to be a coach, a leadership coach, and you're trained not to ask questions about the details because the details don't matter. You're helping the person realize the next steps they should take on their own. And so knowing the boundaries and what's off limits so that you can politely back out and retreat and go recharge.
So how would I do that? So like I've seen that look. How do we get past the look, and how do we stop the conversation? Do I owe them what I'm thinking? Well, that's the last time I'm gonna tell you something. How do I get past that look that isn't like understanding what I'm saying and feeling? Is a hunger for info that I may not be ready to share. But I got myself in this place of thinking, because I'm just about to blow up with all this held in. And the time I do try to get relief, it's like a smack. What do I do? How do I ask somebody else? What do I say to that person?
Well, this is a high stakes conversation, right? And in any high stakes conversation, you have to prepare. So what I would say is, if you haven't prepared and done a little bit of role playing before you get into the situation, then you're going to react, not respond. And because we're dealing with such stress in our life, you're going to go into a red zone, and you are going to react in a way that is not who you want to show up to be. And so that's why I say, to be able to build your community of care, you have to know who you are and what you do and how you respond to stress first. because the last thing you want to do is destroy a really close relationship just because that person is ignorant. And ignorant is not a bad term, it's just you're not educated enough on the topic to have a good discussion with me on this. So I think it's okay to tell people if you're in that moment, if you can remember and just say, thank you. I thought I was prepared to have this conversation. I am not. Do you mind if we put a pin, we pause it, and let's circle back to it later or never? But it's always, you never have to feel like you have to continue a conversation. But you should always feel like you should be respectful to others because they are not walking in your shoes. Their kid might be off winning a swim meet, and life is good right now for them. And they may not have ever had to deal with darkness. They will in their life one day, but that's their paradigm shift to get through. So just be true to yourself. The only other thing that I could say is, you know, I went through some work on myself a long time ago where I know what my personal values are. And and I remind, so in every high stakes conversation that I prepare for, I say, who do I want to be? I want to be strong. I want to have humor. It's got to be kind of fun and playful. I need to extend grace, and I'm going to carry my own sunshine. That means don't bring your clouds into my sunny day. So I do everything in my power, no matter what the topic is, to show up that way. Sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I don't. And Lord knows I've burned some bridges when I haven't been prepared to say things in a more respectful way.
Be prepared.
It's just, but when you're going through crisis and you're reacting, it's impossible to prepare. It's really hard unless you've done work on yourself.
Well, I like what you say about taking care of the caregiver. That's doing work on ourselves, knowing what we need, asking for help when we need it, but asking for from the right source. So NAMI's going to be our first two presentations in Welcoming Wellness.
Great.
What do people need to know about NAMI that are going through this, or may know someone else that's going through this? What do they need to know, and what can they learn?
Well, NAMI is the largest grassroots organization, so it's made up of a bunch of volunteers like Linda and like me, right?
I could hang out with y'all all day.
Yeah.
And so that's what's neat about it, is there's always someone there to just lift you up, help you up. But NAMI offers so many free resources, free training classes, general information and helplines for people. If you just don't know where to go, call them.
Yeah.
Just call the helpline.
Oh, call the helpline.
Yeah.
The helpline, grassroots, and I like that term of lived experience. So with NAMI, you will learn that you're not alone. You're not the only one that's going through the.
Yeah, the sooner we learn that this whole thing is not a light switch, it's actually a dimmer switch. And so we're all in this, we're all kind of on this spectrum. And sometimes we're going to be on this side of the light switch, and sometimes we're going to be on this side. We might be a little brighter, we might be a little darker, but there's never a on off.
It's a journey. Thank y'all for sharing your journey with us today. You've been helping a lot of people.
Thank you all.
Well, you talked about it. You know, I think one of the things that's really interesting about Welcoming Wellness is how it's been embraced by our leadership. Pastor Kelly Lynn, she said yes, yes, and yes. And so I think I hope more churches will take a look at this Welcoming Wellness journey and open a conversation. I think that's what you've done for us today. So thank you both. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing for me.
So we want you to come to Mother's Day service. We'd love to have your families here.